guys, wow, it's a pretty full house. I'm excited to be here. I got 4 hours of sleep, so I'm going to try my best to make it through the entire talk without falling asleep. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, I have 45 minutes to be up here, and rather than giving you a speech and trying to keep you awake through that, I figured I'd kind of make this talk a little bit more conversational. And really the whole focus of the talk is going to be kind of focusing on the why of crypto. And I'm assuming if you're here for the conference, you already are convinced of crypto, but I often see that it's really hard to convince outsiders of crypto of why crypto is important. So I want to have this talk be conversational so we can talk about the why, and I can give you ways that you might be able to explain crypto to people that are outside of crypto, and so that you can help convince them that crypto is real and we should continue to build on it. So with that, I will get started. So I should just say next slide when, okay. So about me, I went to USC, I studied engineering, and then I decided that I wanted to become an investment banker because that sounded cool in college. So then I ended up getting a job at Goldman Sachs, and that's what made me move up to Silicon Valley. And so I worked at Goldman, and eventually I realized that I didn't want to be a banker. It was just not my thing. I'm more engineer-minded, and so I left, and I was trying to figure out what to do next. Eventually, I figured out maybe I'll try the VC thing. So then I got a job at Andreessen Horowitz. And so I worked at Andreessen Horowitz for 2 years. I was on the deal team there, and I focused a lot on enterprise investments as well as a little bit of crypto. So when I was there, we made the investment in Coinbase. And then I left A16Z, and I taught myself how to code so that I can speak the lingo of engineers and understand things better from an engineering perspective, and ended up joining Coinbase as a software engineer. And that was kind of my foray into crypto. And then I left Coinbase, I started my own company called True Story, and we were building a crypto app where we use crypto to coordinate how debates happen online. And so we use the crypto as like a social coordination tool. Ultimately, we realized that we were a little bit too early to the market, and so we decided that we were going to return the investor money and open source the technology. And now my focus, smiley face, is to just educate people about crypto, because I think we're still in that education phase and we need a lot more people and a lot more bridges to be built. So hopefully you guys will be building those bridges so people like me can build really cool companies. With that, let's get started. So I want to keep this talk, as I said, interactive, and ask you a question. So what do you think Bitcoin is? Like, what does Bitcoin mean to you? How many people in the room would say it's money? Okay, but like 1/5. How many people would say technology? Okay, that's more than money, interesting. How many people would say it's a movement? Okay, a lot of people. How many people say none of the above and they have their own answer? What's your answer?
Asset.
It's an asset. Okay. Next slide. It's all of the above, right? Like, it's money, it's technology, and it's a movement. And that's honestly what makes Bitcoin so powerful, because the combination of these three means that it's really a revolution. Like, it's a change in how we do things. And that's what I'll go into in the rest of this presentation. So like I said, it's a revolution. It's all of them. So when someone asks you, okay, what is crypto? Is it money? Is it technology? Is it a movement? It's all. We really can't define it as one or the other. It's everything, and that's what makes it so cool. So, like I said, it's a revolution. And the reason it's a revolution is simple. Because it, for the first time in history, allows us to socially coordinate rules at a global scale. And I'll get into what that means and why this is so powerful, but that's fundamentally what Bitcoin and crypto is it allows us to create a new set of rules, a protocol, whatever you want to call it, and coordinate at a global scale for the first time ever. Like before, 100 years ago, if we wanted to coordinate and create our own economy, our own communities, we had to do it very locally. But with the internet and with crypto, we can finally coordinate our own economies at a global scale. And that is why it's a revolution. So let's get into that a little bit. Fundamentally, before crypto, or even today actually, the biggest problem in the current system is that there's a giant power imbalance. And I'll explain what I mean. So go to the next slide. Okay, so there's a massive power imbalance. Basically, who do you think? Okay, there's two sides to the coin, right? One side is like the government, the banks, and large companies. The other side is all of us. And which side do you think the government is on? Okay, great. So next slide. So that's the government, the banks, and companies, and this is us. We're kind of just like sitting here being controlled by them. And this power imbalance, okay, so that power imbalance it's gotten really bad to the point where the people really don't have a say in how these systems work. We don't have a say in who has access to these systems. Like, we're just kind of being controlled and manipulated by the government, the banks, and companies. And that's not to say that they're bad people and we should fight them, but I think as people, we need to have a voice and a say in how these systems are built and who has access and what these systems look like. But today, we just don't have that. And so, wait, go back. So basically, this is us, and that's the government. So we're kind of here in the bow and arrow, and we're trying to fight the government or banks, but we have before crypto, we had no tools to do that. We're kind of powerless, basically. But now, what crypto does is it gives us something to compete with. It gives us real ammo, real tools to actually defend ourselves. And that's why crypto is so powerful, because it, for the first time, gives us a voice. And not just a voice, it gives us an option to exit as well. And I'll share what I mean. So, what does this give us? What does this give us? Basically, crypto gives us tools to build financial and economic systems from scratch. We get to experiment with what rules these systems have, who has access to these systems, how these systems look and feel, where they exist. Basically, we can now engineer our own systems because, people make systems, even the current financial systems, right? They were all made by people like you and me. The government is not like God, right? They're just people too, sitting behind the government. They're protected behind this wall, but they're people too. And so all these rules were made by people, and now crypto gives us the ability to also think about our own rules and see how we can make the rules better. And that's powerful. And so not only does it give us a voice in how we create these systems, but the more powerful thing is it gives us the option to exit. And this is where, this is the most powerful thing about crypto, because a voice was not enough. Before crypto, we can fight banks, we can fight the government, we can do all this, but they won't listen because they just have so much power. They have no desire to listen. But with crypto, because we can literally create our own economy, because crypto is money, and money is what you need to create an economy, right? it gives us the option to opt out of the existing system and go build our own economy for the first ever time. And that option to exit is fundamentally what we need to like create the counterbalance that we need to say, look, hey government, hey banks, you can keep doing this, but we have this other option. So unless you change and improve how your systems work, we might choose to get up and leave and create our own system. And that gives you a lot of power, and that's powerful. So really, to me at least, this is what crypto means. Like, it gives you the option to exit. And you don't have to exit if you want. If you think the current financial system is great for you and you have no problems with it, you can choose to stay in it. But the option to exit is really, really important to preserve like human rights, basically. And I kind of talked about that. Next slide. And the other big point I want to make is exit amplifies voice. So, like I said, right, voice is important. Like if there's a new regulatory policy that gets created, the government likes to make us feel like we have the option to voice our opinion by giving us the option to vote on these new policies. But voice is typically, just having voice is not enough because they still have a lot of power. And what exit does is basically, exit amplifies voice. So now that we also have the option to exit, they take our voice more seriously. And so, going back to that seesaw, we have checks and balances now. Now we're kind of playing footsies with each other and we can actually listen to each other. And we don't have to be super controlled by the government, the banks, and other institutions. Okay, so now that you understand sort of why crypto is so powerful, why it helps kind of create a more powerful counterbalance, I want to talk about sort of why crypto itself is super interesting. And one of the things I realized recently is crypto is like super anti-fragile. And the reason it's anti-fragile is because not only does it allow us to exit the current system, but, next slide, but it allows us to exit, like, even within crypto, you can exit crypto systems and enter a new one. And what I mean by that is, as you know, crypto blockchains can fork, right? If you don't like the rules of one blockchain, you can fork it and go to another blockchain. So in that way, like, not only can you exit the current financial system, but you can exit Bitcoin and create your own economy if you want. And the ability to fork and keep like creating like sub-economies is what makes it super anti-fragile, because if any system sucks, every person has the option to exit and create their own system. That means the original system has an incentive to do good by the people that it's serving. Because you always have an option to exit and create your own system into infinity. And so that's why, people who didn't like Bitcoin exited and created Ethereum. People who don't like Ethereum exited, created like another version of Ethereum maybe, or EOS, or all these other sub-blockchains because they didn't like the bigger system. And so that ability to exit makes crypto super anti-fragile. And it keeps the checks and balances in place. Okay, so now I want to talk about some common criticisms, because one thing I was told before this talk is there's still a lot of misunderstanding about crypto in India, and people have all these criticisms about what crypto is, and I'm sure that if you're trying to explain it to your parents or your grandmother or whoever it is, friends, they probably come up with common criticisms. So what I like to do when I'm learning a new technology is usually I try to come up with the criticisms myself and then see if I can answer those myself. Because if I don't have an answer to that, then that criticism is probably valid. So in the rest of this talk, I'm gonna go through all the criticisms that I came up with when I was getting into crypto, And then I didn't find the answers to these right away, but over the last like 4 years, I figured out like how to answer these criticisms, and I want to share them with you so that when people give you these criticisms, you can have the same answers if you want. So the first one is, you know, a lot of people will come up to me and be like, this is so fringe. This is like, no one's gonna use this. Like, this is like super like fringe. And it's like, dude, like everything starts in the fringe. A technology doesn't start in the mainstream and then all of a sudden become something. Everything starts in the fringe. Social networks started in the fringe, right? Like the internet started in the fringe. Like everything starts in the fringe. So, and if you know the Gartner hype cycle for how technology gets adopted, you can just give them the Gartner hype cycle and be like, hey, look, this is how technology always happens. Like it starts in the fringe and then it gets adopted. So to me, this is one of the weakest criticisms. Like if a person says that, just give them the Gartner hype cycle. Illicit use. This is a big one, especially in India. And I remember last time when I came, a lot of people were like scared that Bitcoin is going to be used for bad stuff like drugs and black market and all this stuff. But like, that's, in my opinion, that's a really weak argument because crypto is a tool. And as you know, any tool can be used for good or for bad. Like, literally you can take a hammer and be like, oh, nobody should be allowed to use a hammer because you can kill people with a hammer. Of course you can. But people know that that's, like, you know, like there's always, you can always use tools for bad and good. You're not gonna just say no to technology because it can be used for bad stuff. Like even social networks, right? Like how awesome are social networks in the sense that we get to connect with people around the world and, you know, coordinate with people all around the world, but social networks can also be used for bad, right? So you can say that basically about any technology, in the sense that any technology can be used for like bad stuff. So the argument that it can be used for illicit use is wrong. And also, if you think about it, like even the rupee, like it gets used for illicit use all the time. Money gets used for illicit use all the time. So how is Bitcoin any different? Aren't people using money to buy drugs? Like you know, like there's black market in the fiat market too. So the idea that Bitcoin is all of a sudden going to exponentially increase illicit use is just, it's a flawed argument. Blockchain, not Bitcoin. I'm sure you guys have probably heard this where like people are like, oh, like you blockchain, but Bitcoin, no, because it's like it's too fringe or it's going to be used for illicit use. But like, again, going back to that first point I made, where the whole beauty of crypto is it allows us to socially coordinate rules at a global scale. And you can't have that if you don't have some kind of incentive to coordinate around. Like you need the crypto to coordinate and accept like a universal truth and a universal set of rules. If you don't have that crypto, then what is the incentive to coordinate and create this universal database of truth? Otherwise, like most of you know, it's just a database. So if someone says blockchain, not Bitcoin, then that's a flawed argument too, because the most powerful thing about crypto is that it gives you an incentive to coordinate these rules. And without that incentive, it's pointless. And that's not to say that, you know, like I'm not an expert in private blockchains and whether there's a real use case for that, because I've heard arguments on both sides, and this is the one area that I still am not fully, I don't have a strong argument either way on. But like, my gut says that private blockchains, I'm not sure how useful they are, but because like they don't have the crypto to coordinate, so like what is the point? It's like you can just have a shared database to do the same thing. So if someone says blockchain, not Bitcoin, I think like that's a flawed argument because it removes the whole point of crypto, which is that we can socially coordinate. Why not use PayPal? I mean, again, going back, like PayPal is a centralized database. Like the government can tell PayPal to not give you money or not give you an account. And again, we're trying to not have the government have that much power. So literally by using PayPal, it's PayPal is regulated. PayPal can operate without financial licenses and all that. So it's not the PayPal doesn't give you the option to exit. PayPal is controlled by the government at the end of the day. Too slow. I mean, this is silly too. Like, YouTube was impossible when the internet started. So like, you know, we're in that phase where we're just getting started. Give it another 5 to 10 years and watch how the technology improves. So if someone says too slow, just say, well, YouTube wasn't possible when the internet started, so that's a flawed argument. Price is too volatile. And this is the most legit, probably the most legit criticism, because the price is really volatile, and it's unclear if that will ever stabilize in the near future. And I think this is where, as a community, we need to be doing a lot more to make the price more stable. And what I mean by that is, okay, so why is the price volatile? It's volatile because people are still buying and selling randomly. You know, miners mine, but they need to sell Bitcoin to keep their operations up, so they sell. And users are coming in and out. There's no real market yet. It's kind of random of when people buy and sell. And prices will stabilize when there's, supply and demand kind of equalizes. But for that to really happen, what needs to happen is we need to move away from speculation, obviously, and get into something that's more stable. But what will make that happen? And the key thing that's missing in the crypto space for making that happen is we really need a, okay, so sorry, I meant to get into this. So what's missing to make the price more stable is, right now, Bitcoin is so volatile because people are buying and selling for speculation, right? And, go back. And the reason they're doing that is because they have no reason to, they're still using basically the existing fiat system to buy and sell Bitcoin. So basically what I'm trying to convey here is Bitcoin is still fundamentally tied to the existing system. We can't have, Bitcoin doesn't have a self-sustaining economy. To buy Bitcoin, we still need cash, and I can't really use Bitcoin to really do anything in real life. So we're kind of still attached by the hip to the current financial system. And the price is gonna stay volatile as long as we're attached to the existing system. It's not gonna stabilize. The only time it will really stabilize is if we can create a self-sustaining crypto economy. So we need an economy where Bitcoin or any crypto can be used on its own to actually power the entire economy. So we need a closed loop system, not Bitcoin and being an open loop system where it's reliant on the financial system. We need a system where it's closed loop and it operates on its own. And until that happens, the price is going to be volatile. That's just the reality of it. So that's probably the biggest risk for Bitcoin is how long will it take us, builders, to create this self-sustaining economy so that Bitcoin's price becomes stable and it actually becomes real. Because until then, it's just a toy and we're just going to keep speculating. It's not real money until it can be used to basically power your lives. And that's fundamentally where the biggest risk for Bitcoin lies today. So whether it becomes mainstream or not relies on us to create that, next slide, that closed loop system. And so this is where really cool efforts I don't know if you know about seasteading, but it's he's building this I forget what his name is, but basically it's an entrepreneur and he's building a new city in an island, basically in the middle of a sea. And over time, I think he wants to power that island with crypto. So instead of using fiat money, he might use crypto as an economy to power that new city. So those are the kinds of really ambitious things that we need created for us to create this closed loop system and for this new financial system to take birth. Until then, we're just going to be attached by the hip to the existing financial system. And basically, Bitcoin is going to continue to be just digital gold until that happens. So for Bitcoin to become the vision it wants to become, or any crypto to become the vision it wants to become, we have to create this system. And who knows how long that will take. It might take 5 years, it might take 10 years, it might take 50 years. And that's why I say that Bitcoin crypto is a revolution, because this is not going to happen overnight. There's so many things that need to happen for us to create this closed loop system. And we're going to keep working at it. So if you're in it just for, like the short-term stuff, I don't think that's a good idea, because we're not going to see results probably for another decade or even 50 years, because all these bridges need to be built to build this closed loop system. Government said it's bad. My grandma says this, my mom says this, and the government, of course, wants you to think it's bad. Why? Because it threatens them, right? Like I said, it gives you an option to exit, and no one wants their power to be taken away. That's fundamental human desires, and you don't want your power to be taken away. You're going to be scared if some of your power is taken away. So of course they're going to tell you it's bad. So I think that's like a weak argument again. And final point I want to make is trust in people versus trust in math. So there's two sides to this coin, right? There's the government and banks and institutions who kind of are going to preach to you that, it's important, you trust us, we place trust in us, that's important, people thrive on trusting institutions, all this stuff. So there's that camp of people who don't want to trust code, but they want to trust people. And then there's the engineer-minded people who want to trust just code, they want to trust just math, and they love Bitcoin because, you just have to trust the code, you don't have to trust people. And there's always going to be a fight. Okay, do we trust just the math or do we trust the people? And really, I think neither side is wrong, because you can't just have trust in math. You still need the people. You can't have just trust in people. You need a little bit of a counterbalance, objectivity. Really, we need both sides to work together to basically create, we need to basically work together instead of fighting each other. So what crypto does is it allows us to create systems where not only do you trust the math, but you also trust people, and we need to all work together. So the idea, what I'm trying to say is, when the government tells you that crypto is bad, we shouldn't be fighting them, because that's not going to get us anywhere. What we need to do is we need to show them that, yes, trust in institutions is fine, but we also should use this new system where we can also openly, transparently see all the rules so that we can have a balanced and fair system. So we need to be working together instead of fighting the government and saying, oh, they're terrible, and the government saying, oh, this crypto thing is terrible, you should never use it. Neither side is wrong. They're both right, and we need to just work together. So takeaways are, next slide. So again, crypto is not a technology, it's not just money, it's not just a movement, it's really the option to exit, and it's about human rights. It's about your right as a person to have the option to exit if you want. And without that option, basically you're a slave to the system. And so crypto is about human rights, and it's a movement, it's a revolution. And because you have the option to exit, you have freedom. We have the freedom to create your own economy and create your own systems. And last thing, don't fight, educate, because we really need to work together. Because if we fight the government, what they're going to do is only try to create more regulations to make it harder on us. So that's not good either, because we haven't fully exited their system. We're still tied to their system. So for us to even have this option to exit, we need to work with them and allow them to create more friendly regulations so that we can go off and create our economies on our own like we want to. And that's it. So with that, I will open it up for questions. Yes?
Ma'am, can quantum computing can break down the blockchain? or crypto?
Quantum computing?
In future, I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good question, and this is something I looked into a little bit in the past. I'm not a quantum computer expert by any means. It's definitely possible that quantum computers can break the current break the current incentives, because the computers will get that powerful that they can outcompete current miners. But I think I have a feeling that that will get solved. Like, there's already engineers thinking about this and how to quantum proof basically the protocol, and I have a feeling that by the time we have quantum computers, we'll probably have engineers who worked on a solution to build better hash algorithms to be quantum proof, basically. So I wouldn't worry about that too much just yet, unless you're a quantum engineer and you want to work on a solution for that.
Anyone else? I have a question.
Yeah.
So we heard a lot about this, about volatility. How can you use something as currency when it's so volatile?
Yeah.
So I always have an argument that I believe you need to first use the critical mass. Like Bitcoin, if there are fewer people trading, it's easier to manipulate. If there are many more people trading, the volatility reduces. Do you see that happening, probably 5 years, 10 years down the line, when Bitcoin can reach a certain price where its volatility is not really a problem? There's too much of demand and supply, and it keeps the order books at bay.
But again, the supply and demand, even when you have a lot of people, it's still speculative, right? Because you're just kind of making bets on the supply, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy still. So what I really think we need for the price to not be volatile is we need an economy. We need Bitcoin to be usable, or crypto to be used to basically fund your life and power your life. Otherwise, it's going to be forever a speculative bet. What more is it than that? Even if you have half the world using it, I'll have to think about that, but I don't think the price will get completely stabilized just by having a critical mass of people. Something about that feels wrong, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? There's nothing backing it besides your faith.
So let's say if it's for example, if it's $1 million,
Yeah.
For Bitcoin to reach $1 million, you need to at least have 500 million people onboarded to the Bitcoin bandwagon, because the supply is so limited. And if there are 500 million people trading, so the spreads could actually be really less. I mean, that's what happens with even forex markets, right? The reason there are billions of people trading forex, so
Yeah.
you want to have that kind of movements.
Yeah, I can see that. But what's gonna get that many people into Bitcoin? Do you think that many people are getting into Bitcoin will get into Bitcoin just because they want to trade it? I think people will want to trade it if it's useful in other ways, right? Because they for you to convince them to trade Bitcoin just for trading Bitcoin, I'm not sure if the mainstream wants to do that. But the mainstream will want to do it if they know they can, if they know that it's a real asset, right? And it's not just a speculative bet. So yeah, you're right in the sense that if you get that supply, that many people onto Bitcoin, then the price stabilizes. But how do you get that many people into Bitcoin without having any other use for it? That's my big question.
Thank you.
Hi. Just to draw an analogy with how during 2008 and 10 there was a boom of all mobile apps. You had an app for literally each and everything. But today you see there about maybe 20, 30 of them that have stabilized. That's on everyone's smartphone. I feel there's a similar thing that happened during the 2017 boom. You had a coin for each and everything.
Yeah.
So where do you see in terms of what sectors will actually have blockchain plus crypto concept being really valuable?
That's a good question, and this is where, I believe that I'm on I'm not on the camp of there'll be many crypto communities and many crypto coins and many crypto apps. I don't think they'll be okay, so I'll break that down. When it comes to money, crypto being used as money, I think hard money, I think there'll only be one, because you can't have millions of monies. They're all kind of follow a long tail. But when it comes to cryptos cryptos to be used in applications, I think there'll be many. And you said that there's only 20 apps on each phone. That's true, but there's also much smaller apps that everyone has. So that's how crypto will work too. So that there'll be many smaller coins, smaller communities, not nearly as big as Facebook per se, but there'll be other ones too.
Just one question.
Yes.
Hi Preethi, this is Manoj. I have a question. Like, is it possible to completely exit from this current system? When we see this volatility, is it possible like we can print rates in the form of cryptocurrencies for any item? This is for how many the Bitcoin or this much ripples. So this volatility is high. So when we print the rates, when actual consumer will buy this, the cost may vary because of volatility. So we can only use these currencies as a transaction. I mean, if the any item is for $10, so will it be printed as a $10 only? And when the consumer will want to buy it, it will transfer the money in the cryptocurrency worth of $10, whether it is Bitcoin or Ripple or any crypto coin. So I mean, is it possible only for in the form of transaction, or can we completely eliminate this current system of this money?
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to make. That's the point I was trying to make with the closed loop system. I think the way crypto becomes mainstream is if we can build a closed loop system that's not reliant on using $10 or 10 rupees to buy and sell Bitcoin. To transact with Bitcoin. So to answer your question, I think that should be our goal. We should try to build a closed loop system so that we're not attached to the existing financial system. Because if we're attached to the existing financial system, I'm not saying that's a terrible outcome, but that's not gonna make crypto revolutionary. Because what that makes crypto is it just makes it an alternative to the current system, which is fine because we still have an alternative and we still have the option to exit, which could be good enough. But to really make crypto a revolution, we have to create that closed loop system. And until then, like I said, it's digital gold, and we're going to be reliant on the current system.
Great. Just one question. You want to ask?
My name is Avnish Kumar Dubey. Please explain the Lightning Network and Ethereum 2.0.
I don't think I can explain that in one sitting. I'm happy to talk to you about it after the talk, but I think Lightning is very interesting from an engineering perspective, but obviously there's a lot. Lightning Network, for those of you who don't know, is a way to basically transact much faster because it doesn't actually hit the blockchain, and you can do all these smaller transactions much more quickly and all that. But I think Lightning is still pretty far away from meeting the needs of a large group of people actually using it. There's still a lot of technical challenges with Lightning that have to be figured out. But it's definitely a good effort, and I'm curious to see where it goes. Ethereum 2.0, honestly, I'm a little bit unsure. Ethereum 2.0 it keeps getting more and more complicated, and I've stopped even paying attention because it's just every day they have a new thing added to it. I think Ethereum is going to figure itself out, but whether Ethereum 2.0 is the solution to crypto and the right way to do it, I think it's too early. I think if my gut says it's too complicated.
Thank you so much, Preethi.
Yeah.
May I?
Sure. One last question.
All right. I just fixing your time.
I'm sorry, madam.
Hi, Manu. My name is Shantanu, and my question is very simple. How do you expect Bitcoin to flourish if we still couple it with a US dollar or a fiat? All right. So when do we start doing that? When do we start decoupling fiat from crypto?
That's my cat dog analogy, and that's what I mean, is the sense that they're super coupled today, and until we go out and create a closed loop economy with Bitcoin or any crypto, we're going to be coupled to it. And again, like, as long as we're coupled to the existing financial system, Bitcoin is just digital gold. It's an alternative. It's not a revolution. For it to be the revolution that we want it to be, we have to go out and decouple it. So we have to build self-sustaining economies that are powered on its own. And that's what will make it revolutionary. And so whether that happens or not is relying on us and whether we go out and experiment and try to build these closed loop, self-sustaining economies using crypto. And what's hard about it is it's scary. It's scary to do that because we're so reliant on the current financial system. Like even me, would I want to go to a random island and just start to build my own community and economy? It's scary. You have to kind of start from scratch, and that's what makes it so hard. And hopefully we'll have really brave pioneers who will go out and lead the way so that the rest of the people can follow. But decoupling is scary because we're so reliant on the current system, and hopefully some of you will be brave enough to go out.